All right, here we go with day 19, just 2 days left. And today we're going to continue on with similar exercises to day 18. And we will continue with exercises in which we want to name all the squares from which the first piece listed can safely attack the second piece listed. And so the first exercise is to name all the squares from which a white queen on d8 can attack a black rook on a1. So it's important that you don't use a square where the rook can take the queen after the queen attacks the rook. So once again, first one, how can a white queen on d8 safely attack a black rook on a1? Name all the squares from which that can be done, and that's without looking at the board. Second exercise is a white queen on c3 and all the squares from which it can safely attack a black rook on f1. The third exercise is a white queen on e1, and now we're switching to bishops, and we want to see how a white queen on e1, all the squares from which it can safely attack a black bishop on b7, and finally a white queen on e4. We want to name all the squares it can safely attack a black bishop on g7. And so go ahead and just pause the video, and then you can look at these questions on here, and then we will, when you're done with that, we will go through the answers. All right, the first exercise was a white queen on d8 attacking a black rook on a1. And so once again, we want to note that the A file and the first rank are not safe. So that rules out squares like A5, A8, and D1. So that pretty much leaves us working along this long dark square diagonal. And so the safe squares we can attack that rook from are D4 and F6. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, so the second exercise was a queen on c3 and a rook on f1. So we have ruled out the f file and the first rank. And so squares like a1, c1, f3, f6 are all unavailable. So that leaves us working down the a6 to f8 to f1 diagonal, the a6 to f1 diagonal. And so the squares c4 and d3 are safely available for the queen, as well as the square h3 working down the h3 to e1 diagonal. All right, so let's go on to the bishops. All right, so the third exercise involved a queen on e1 and a bishop on b7. So this long light square diagonal is off limits, so we cannot safely access e4 or h1. So we have to attack them basically vertically or horizontally. And so the squares that we can do that from are along the b file and along the 7th rank. So we could safely attack from b1, from b4, and from e7. So let's go on to the last exercise. All right, so the final exercise was a queen on e4 and a bishop on g7. So that puts the a1 to h8 long dark square diagonal off limits. So we cannot attack the bishop from e5 or d4. So we're going to have to attack it from the front or from the side. And so we're going to want to attack it along the 7th rank or along the g file. And so the squares we can safely attack it from on the 7th rank would be b7, e7, and h7. And along the G file would be G6, G4, and G2. So that's it for day 19. Just one more day left. Tomorrow we're going to be focusing exclusively on queens and bishops. And then we will have a post test after that video. So just one more left.